Our next presenter is Jen Lee. She is an entrepreneur who happened to become a successful bankruptcy attorney. After building her law firm, Jen created Lawyer Success Network. She loves figuring out ways to help other lawyers innovate and move the practice of law forward. She is a true attorney entrepreneur. Jen, welcome to the Law Firm Growth Conference.
Thank you, Ellie. Let's jump in, hopefully. Thanks for having me. I am different. And so my presentation is a little bit out there sometimes. So hopefully you'll enjoy hearing a different perspective on how you can love practicing law and love your firm. So what would you say if your kid came to you and said they wanted to go to law school and or be a lawyer? If your first response is, no, please don't do that. Being a lawyer sucks, then this is the talk for you. The first thing I have to tell you though is to please turn off your lawyer brain. It's that part of your brain that says, we can't do that. No one does things that way. That's not how it's been done. I have to bill by the hour. All of those things, please turn off that little part of your brain that says that, because you won't get very far thinking like that in today's world, legal world. So what kind of lunatic talks about loving the practice of law, encourages young people to go to law school, thinks that the legal business model itself is broken? Hi, my name is Jen Lee. I am a bankruptcy attorney. I love helping other attorneys add bankruptcy to their practice in 2 days or less. I talk to middle school, high school kids about going to law school, college kids. There's a huge lack of attorneys in some parts of the country. And I think that the legal system is so outdated and the business model itself is so crazy that there's so much opportunity. There's so many things we can do as lawyers that have nothing to do with boring meetings and billing by the hour. So let's jump into some of that. When you started your law firm, or if you're considering starting your law firm, did you design your practice? Did you even know what design meant? Or like me, because I made lots of mistakes and I come from the school of hard knocks when it comes to running a law firm, did you buy a book and download some checklists and like, okay, I got my malpractice insurance, I got a bank account, guess I need some clients, fly by night, whatever, maybe an office space, maybe not. That's what 99% of lawyers do. They start their firm thinking there's a checklist. I need to get all of these logistical things in place, and then end up miserable in 4 to 5 years, or even sooner. I was miserable a lot sooner than 4 to 5 years because I didn't think about how I wanted my practice to run, and I was scared. I thought I had to do everything like the lawyers before me had done. And when I realized I didn't have to do that, my life got a whole lot better. So I would guess that any books that you read about opening a firm or any presentations you went to about opening a firm, they didn't talk about designing your business model, the things that you love to do, things that you hate to do, what types of clients you wanted. Attorneys who have clients they like are much more happier than attorneys who hate working with their clients. And there's ways to structure your business model design so that that actually happens. I work with bankruptcy clients. My clients are technically broke, not always, but they're struggling with their finances. They're some of the best people to work with when you find good ones. Not all of them, though, are great clients to work with. And some of this goes back to what Bruce was talking about earlier and identifying the clients you want to work with. It's not whether they want to work with you. You should be picky enough to identify the ones you want to work with. So, all of Bruce's advice, too. You may hear the word checklist more than once because I understand lawyers like checklists. We create checklists for our staff. We go through and we check the boxes. We like to do that. Checklists actually hold you back, just like your brain does. Because what checklists prevent you from doing when you're designing your law firm or thinking about your business model or thinking of other sources of income, because you don't have to practice law to use your law degree. We want to think about checklist items, and we can't do that. You have to think outside the box. There are so many innovative things out there that you can do with a law degree and even practicing law. As a bankruptcy attorney, I did a whole lot of things outside the box because there was just so many problems you could solve if you thought a little bit differently. For example, I stopped doing free consultations 10 years ago for bankruptcy. And my clients are technically broke and they still pay for consultations. And to this day, I have attorneys who will argue with me that you can't build a business model on paid consultations for bankruptcy attorneys. My firm grew by 100% every year for 5 years after I implemented paid consults. So if you don't think outside the box, you go use a checklist, you are setting yourself up to potentially be not as happy as you could be with a better design. Not that it won't happen, but there it is. So let's back up just a second and talk about what is law firm design. I am a little bit of woo-woo and out there. I do like to come up with the emotional side of what we do, the mental health side. I really resonate with what Raquel said earlier about you can't be the one working 90 hours a week while you're 9 months pregnant. You're not going to be happy doing that ever. So law firm design is taking the time to actively look at your life, not your business. We're going to talk about work-life balance in a little bit, but look at what you like and what you want out of your firm. A lot of us let the firm run us. And if you look at it from a design perspective, you can be very intentional with how you set up a law firm to fit your life. And this isn't just like what areas of law do you want to offer, how your practice will operate, what kinds of clients you want. Again, client selection is huge, and how you'll make money. And I throw the money part in here because money is really important. We kind of need it to pay our bills and pay for our kids' schools and do all the things we want to do. But I do a lot of talking about the billable hour, because if you are billing by the hour, your income is capped by how many hours you're willing to work. And there are so many better ways to make a lot more money with less time that the billable hour, and it's especially with AI too. There are lots of efficiencies out there. I can do things now in 2 seconds that would take me an hour to do before. So many things. So if you're billing by the hour, that is one law firm design I would at least look at if there are other options out there. And the way you design your firm can also help you plan to offload tasks you hate. So you can actually focus on things that you love to do. And by what I mean by this is, let's say you're a numbers person. I'm a numbers person. I like numbers. You don't mind accounting. Maybe you have a CPA. Maybe we went to accounting, have an accounting undergrad degree, and you actually like accounting and bookkeeping, and you want to keep that. Great. As a firm owner, you could actually do the accounting. Keeping the things you love means you get to do the things you want to work on. But if you hate numbers and you went to law school because being a doctor required math, do not try to do your own accounting. You'll just hate your life, law firm, and your life at some point because you're trying to do things that you hate. So identifying those things that you love and the things that you hate gives you a list of things you can outsource. Call Raquel. Gives you things that you may want to think about how you structure your firm from your perspective of how much time you have to put into actual legal work versus administration. You can hire attorneys to do all the legal work. That's what I did in private practice. I hired attorneys who I didn't actually like legal work itself. I liked the strategy, I liked design, and I liked helping people on a bigger scale. And I moved those things into what I'm doing now, which is working with firms on design and fighting bankruptcy. But when you think about these things specifically and consciously, it helps you look at what you need from a personal and professional perspective so that you are successful in your practice. I get really sad when I hear lawyers say that they hate practicing law, that they hate law. If you hate something, stop doing it. You can change practice areas tomorrow. The life is too short to hate what you're doing. And there are all kinds of things that you could do with features and your superpowers. We're going to talk about superpowers here in a second, things that you love to do. I do have a spoiler alert. As much as I love R2D2, Lawyers aren't robots. We do not have a switch in our brain that lets us turn off and on and uh, do things without emotion. Everything we do has emotion, whether you're a touchy feely person or you are a very reserved, conservative emotion type person, you still have feelings and you're not robot. Your law firm needs to align, or your practice, even if it's a law firm, there's other things you can do to solve problems for people that may not be practicing law. You have to align your practice with what you're passionate and what your personal values are. If you are an M&A attorney, no offense to any M&A attorneys in the room, if you're an M&A attorney and you practice M&A because your dad did and his mom did and great great grandma did, and you just think that's what you should do, but you hate it, that is not a good reason to stay there. And there are all kinds of things you can do with the skills you learned so far in your law career. The way I structured this, so this is a little bit of a preview of the online course we have that, actually Alay and I have together on designing a law firm, is talking about your superpower. What's your favorite problem to solve for clients? Please notice here, I didn't say what problems your clients come to you with, because they come to you with all kinds of nonsense. But when the client comes to you, that is your favorite thing to work on, and you off the bat hey, this is my deal. I'm so good at this, and you're in your groove. Start with that. Like, what's your favorite problem to solve and why? And then focus on how good are you at solving that problem, and how can you turn that into a service offering for your firm? How can you turn that into something you can expand on? I am really good in bankruptcy at seeing the big picture. Like, you can throw all these numbers at me and I can look at them for like 5 minutes and I can tell you exactly what the client should do. I can't just tell the client that's what they should do. I have to walk them down the same path, but I love doing that. And so knowing that I'm good at that, as soon as someone says that's their problem, I can jump right in. What does your client think of you when you're working on your favorite problem? After you solve it, what does your client say about you? Remember, a lot of our referrals come from clients and come from people who have heard about you. Bankruptcy is a little bit harder to get referrals from because people don't want to ever admit they did it. But like today, I got an email from a former client. I still get emails, even though I'm not practicing bankruptcy full time anymore. And she basically said to me, we finished up our case, and I'm sure you've heard this many times before, but we never imagined ourselves in this situation. That being said, you were the greatest help, and I want to thank you personally. In the most difficult of times, you treated us with respect, non-judgmental, and created a payment plan that we were able to manage. That is priceless. That is what my superpower is when it comes to bankruptcy law, and I love being able to do that. And that client has already referred a ton of people over to my former firm to get that same kind of help. There's a lot of words on this slide, and I'll keep powering through. I want you to think a little about, what does your design look like? There are a million ways to do things. In law, I feel like there is one way that everyone thinks things should be done, when really there are a million ways to do things. And the other thing to think about is there may be a million ways to do something, but I guarantee you there are probably only one or two ways that will make you enjoy it. So this focuses on what your design looks like, not mine, not anyone sitting next to you. And these are some of the questions that I throw out there. Do you work 20 hours a week, or do you work 60 hours a week? I do love some of the generational differences happening in the workplace right now. I have one client with about 40 employees, and the Gen Z, and I'm a Zennial, I'm kind of a mix between Gen X and Millennial. I'm kind of on that cusp of both, and I relate to both pretty well. But the Gen Z employees crack me up because they're like, we have a 35-hour work week, which is what this firm has, is a 35-hour work week. Attorneys don't work more than 35 hours a week either. And Gen Z's like, that's it. I work my 35 hours and I go home. They are fiercely loyal to the company, but they have boundaries in place. It's great. It's fun to see. So do you want to work 20 hours a week or 60? I guarantee you there are lawyers out there making well into 6 figures, 7 figures, working 20 hours a week. There are bankruptcy attorneys, by the way, that make really good money. And everyone thinks that that's a misconception. Is your office open on Saturdays, but not on Mondays? And these are just ideas. I got slammed on Facebook a few years ago when I first was designing my law firm because I went in the office on a Saturday morning to meet with some Chapter 13 clients. Chapter 13 clients are working clients. They are trying to make a payment plan. That's what Chapter 13 is. And someone on Facebook said, don't you own your own business? Why are you at work on a Saturday? Why do you bow down to your clients and appease with their schedules? And I was like, well, first of all, I go to wineries on Fridays, so butt out. So Saturday morning is a great place to be. And I want my happy Chapter 13 clients to be able to meet with me and not affect their job. So I was open on Saturdays. Mondays, not so often. Tuesday nights, sometimes. Morning, hardly ever. But you can design that. When we talk about design and lifestyle, that's a thing that goes into design. What do you want your office to look like and your hours to look like? Do you have multiple sources of income? Not based on the billable hour. There are so many things, and we'd be happy to brainstorm ideas for sources of income that do not include the billable hour. There's so many things out there you can do that don't involve hours that you're billing against or discouraging you from being productive, otherwise you don't get paid. Do you have staff or a virtual assistant? For years, I said, I don't want staff. I have no desire to manage people. I did that for 20 years. Corporate America, I had no desire to go back. Those things can make or break you. And a lot of people make the decision to add staff when they shouldn't. What's your superpower? What do you love doing? If you're not doing something you love, change it. And then what do you love to do in your firm? Do you like the legal work? Then do you need to hire a manager for your firm? Do you like the accounting and you want to do the bookkeeping, but you need to offload some of the legal work? What do you like to do? And if you could pick something that you never had to do again for your law firm, what would that be? Because I guarantee you can outsource it. How much revenue do you need to bring in? Let's talk about money. Have you sat down and discussed that with either your family, yourself, even having a self-discussion about money? I'm a big fan of money talk. And figuring out what that looks like in order to make you happy. More money equals more problems. I had clients in bankruptcy that made $1 million a month and were miserable. I had clients where we fixed their problems in bankruptcy and they made $5,000 a month and they were happy clients. So there can be more money won't make you happy. You have to be doing something you enjoy doing, and you have to be actively managing your money thoughts too. So another whole discussion. And then where are those clients at that you love? How do you reach them and not take the rest of the clients? Don't practice door law. Don't take whatever comes in the door because that will make you miserable. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. These are just some of the questions I want to throw out there, that some of them are a little bit more controversial than others, because you often hear you have to build a team in order to grow your firm. With AI, you don't really have to do that anymore. There's all kinds of ways to do that without building a team. And then we also hear you have to work so many hours a week in order to be successful. You have to work hard, you have to work efficiently, but you don't have to put in X number of hours to make it work. So just a couple thoughts out there, keep in mind. And so then I just want to talk a little bit about work-life balance and the myth of work-life balance. We are all of the things in the world that make us up, whether that's work, whether that's our hobbies, family, things that you enjoy doing, sleeping, all of those things are our lives. And you can't draw like a line in the sand. And I didn't at least put the scales on here because I don't like that image. You can't balance exactly evenly with, oh, now I'm at work and I'm at home. If you are unhappy at work, likely it will bleed over into home life. If you are unhappy at home, it will likely bleed over to work. It's all interconnected and related. And so I actually don't like work-life balance as a topic most of the time, because it ignores that part of let's do things that are cohesive with our lives. And our brains are tricky. I already talked about turning off your brain. We overthink, We overanalyze, we overwork ourselves, thinking if we just worked more hours, we will be happier or more successful. And that's the opposite is true. I did put in a few things about boundaries on here because I have found working with a lot of solos and small firms over the last 5 years that they don't feel they can say no. And I want to make sure that you realize that you can say no to anything. Having those boundaries is really important. Say no. Schedule your phone call. When you're talking about designing your firm, design how you want your clients to experience your firm. Scheduling phone calls was one of the best things I ever did for my mental health. I did not take a single phone call all day in my firm. We would schedule them all appointments back. And I had a couple of lawyers. They were old school lawyers. Again, the ones I'm trying, they were miserable lawyers because you could tell they were miserable by the way they handled their cases. And they would complain about this. They're like, I can't call you and get you on the phone. How are we supposed to discuss settlement? All of these things. And I'm like, we offered you several times tomorrow that are available when I will have the file open and be ready and prepared to discuss this. But I don't know how much work you have. I don't have time to just jump on the phone every 10 seconds because that means I'm after work late tonight. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not working past my hours. So scheduling phone calls is a game changer. And take email off your phone. Unless you are in some practice area, and even then you can outsource reception and things like that. After 5 o'clock, any email that comes after 5 o'clock, you don't have to respond to it until the next day. And set those expectations in your client engagements. Talking about more design. There's tons of stuff that goes into design. I'm just trying to give you like highlights and things to think about. There is no even balance though. So when you turn one off, the other doesn't automatically turn on. But if you design it so that you love it either way, then everything flows together. And a little bit of Zen. So practical steps. Yes, this is a lot of woo. It wasn't as step by step as some presentations probably are. I have to be different. I just can't be normal. That's who I am. How do you move a mountain? The biggest challenge that most people face when looking at either starting a firm or redesigning their firm is it's just so overwhelming. And the joke is always, how do you move a mountain one stone at a time? I've also heard, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? But if you know me from bankruptcy, I have an elephant as my mascot, and the idea of eating Bernadette didn't sit well with me. So you have to start, or you have to make the commitment to start. It takes time to do this. I often get attorneys who they don't want to train staff because it takes too much time. And then they complain that they're so busy they can't keep up. But they're not willing to take those first, month or two to get things all put together and save them time in the long run. And so you have to make the decision that you're going to sit down and do this, that you're going to figure out what works for you. And you're not going to listen to all those talking heads around you that say you have to do it this way. Because as soon as you go down that path, you're back to the checklist. Some things to look at just to start is what's working and what's not. What absolutely drives you crazy in your practice? I had a really good colleague a couple years ago that I was working with some coaching on, and she was my coach. And she said the way she would finish up our calls was, what is frustrating you right now? If you could remove one thing from your gigantic to-do list because you hate even looking at it, what is that? It was a really good way to focus me in on those things that are in the back of your mind that you really can't stand doing, you're putting off, procrastinating on. So you can start with what's working and what's not. What do you like and what do you don't like? And what do you want to change? And what are you pretty happy with? And just making those lists and writing them down is a really good source. I'm not advocating that you have to have a journal or do anything crazy, but just jotting down a few things and spending time to think through it before rushing off into our crazy lives that we lead. And then also remember, you can change your mind whenever you want. My first few consulting clients, when I was transitioning from bankruptcy practice to lawyer consulting, were big law attorneys. who were 50 years old and they'd always wanted to go solo, but everyone told them it was a bad idea and they were scared. And the idea that they hadn't taken a step for 25 years because they were scared, first of all, it was heartbreaking. If someone tells you they're going solo or they're opening a law firm, your response should be, congratulations, what can I do to help? It should not be, have you thought about this? This is a bad idea. Do you want to give up your salary? Those are all things that they've thought about long before they told you they're opening up their own practice. And so just giving them permission to do that was great. You can change your mind whenever you want. You can add a practice area. You can change your practice area tomorrow. If you are, and the most common one I hear here is family law attorneys. They decided they don't want to do litigation anymore. If you are a family law attorney and you don't want to practice family law anymore, or you don't want to do litigation, change it. It does take time to figure out what that looks like. You may need to sit down and think through what your business model is and sources of income, but you can change it. Don't fall into the sunk cost fallacy, which is often something I talk about in debt and credit issues. Sunk cost fallacy is I've come so far in this journey that I can't give up all the time I put into it. So I might as well be miserable for the next 20 years to make up for those 10 years I already put into this. That's nonsense. It comes up with debt. People think that they can borrow their way out of debt by taking on more debt because, well, they're already this far in. Relationships too. The sunk cost fallacy is, oh, I've been with this person for 10 years. I mean, I have all this time invested. No, be happy. Don't, and I'm not encouraging divorce. Don't get me going there. But if something changing in your life would make you happy, make those changes responsibly and with haste instead of waiting for it's too late, wishing you would have done it earlier. So I do have a couple of offers out there. I say your practice your rules because the only rules we should follow are your own. I'm a lawyer who hates rules. And so I do have two offers out there right now. Alay and I did a fantastic course called Launch, and it's designing your ideal practice that's on all those questions. Alay and I go through all the questions in the worksheets and actually how to design or redesign your firm. And that's 50% off through September 30th. And then I also have a building your bankruptcy practice from start to finish that basically walks someone through how to add bankruptcy as a practice area or start a bankruptcy firm. And this was a recorded version that's been out there for a few years. I've had a ton of people I've helped add bankruptcy. We are doing a live version on October 4th and 5th. So if you've ever wanted to add a practice area in 2 days, this is the time to do it. So we are doing 5 hours October 4th, 5 hours October 5th. And at the end of it, you will be in position to add bankruptcy as a practice area. For this event, I'm doing $200 off that course by September 21st. It is coming up when we're trying to close out registrations on that one. And that also includes mentorship and helping you through your first few cases as well. So any questions, feel free to let me know. I think I'm running close on time. And again, hope this was a little bit of a different approach to things. And feel free to reach out to me. Alay,
Awesome.
anything you want to chime in with?
Love all the information. I think people are probably in maybe a little bit of overwhelm. So, if you had to, if you had to give them just one simple thing to think about, what would it be?
I would think about what is not working, because that's where you start with the redesign, is what is not working with your practice or your life.
Love
So
that. And thank you also for mentioning that lawyer brain, that skepticism. That is so important. And we're hearing it just over and over and over again, and for good reason.
thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to see you, Jen.